Have DICE really done enough with the winter offensive patch? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. I'm going to be going through 4 or 5 items for pros and cons of this update for each, and then we can discuss if this is actually really a good patch or not. And as a disclaimer, I haven't played RedSec yet on this new patch, so this is going to be mainly based on my experience in multiplayer. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so I do want to start with the things that I've actually found that have worked well with this patch so far that I'm pretty impressed with, I want to say. So the first thing is how they have actually improved the recoil and aim input and how they interact with each other. Now, I did a video not so long ago and there were lots of people commenting on that saying, I don't see a problem with it. But there were also a lot of people saying, yeah, I can see why it feels off. Well, DICE have actually listened, and I'm super pleased to see this has actually been patched in this patch, because this makes the gunplay now feel amazing. So if you're interested in what the issue was and now how they've come about to fix it, I'll leave the link in the description for my video that I did on this. But essentially what happened is when you fired your gun, it would adjust your sensitivity down so it wouldn't be like your native sensitivity, and it would just make controlling recoil feel really clunky and all that sort of stuff. And they've actually addressed this, and it feels like you are free to actually control recoil. So that is a big plus point for this patch, is that it's made the gunplay feel, for me anyway, so much better. And I'm sure you guys have probably noticed as well that there's something different. Even if you didn't know what that difference is, well, you now do. And this is what the issue was before, and it's made the gunplay feel that much better. Now, the audio is better, but it's still not quite where it needs to be. I do still feel like it needs some fine tuning, but there's certainly progress on things like footsteps. I've not really been into RedSec or spent loads of time around vehicles. However, the one game that I did play with vehicles in it, it sounds better. It sounds like the sound cuts through a lot more now, and it's not muddied by other sounds going on. So there's definitely some improvements there. However, what I will say on the footstep stuff and the vehicles is that it's still not quite where it needs to be yet, but there's definitely been progress made. Now, on the performance side, I've seen a lot of people say, oh, my performance bad, there's stuttering. I don't know whether this is just a RedSec thing, but this patch has made my performance feel pretty good. Like, I've updated to the latest NVIDIA driver, and I must say, like, it is feeling decent. I feel like I'm getting probably slightly less frames. That's what the FPS count was saying, but my 1% lows feel less, so overall the game's feeling a bit smoother. So I certainly haven't got any issues with the performance per se, and overall my game feels pretty stable right now. Now, the other thing they've added in this patch, which is actually, like, for me makes a big difference, I'm sure like it would do for most of you guys as well, is they've added an FPS limiter whilst in the menus. And that is such a nice touch, because Call of Duty have this, and it saves your PC from blasting out heat while you're sat waiting in menus. You can actually like reduce your frames down to like 60 or 120 or whatever, rather than maxing it out, so it gives your PC a break while you're loading in games and stuff. I actually think that was a really nice touch, and I don't remember seeing that on the patch notes, so I think that was actually like a little stealth thing they've added. So yeah, nice touch, DICE. And I appreciate you adding that in. And then the other thing that I think they've done a pretty good job with as well is balancing the guns that they mentioned in the patch notes. And this is like, for example, the SG553R. There are a couple of others as well. And I'm actually pretty pleased to see that they haven't gone too far with the nerfs or buffs even. Like, they've kept it pretty reasonable. Like, if this was a Call of Duty balancing patch, they probably would nerf the guns into the ground and make them unusable, or buff things so, like, there's literally no point using any of the guns in the game. The nerfs and buffs they've done to things seem pretty reasonable and doesn't make things unusable. It just adds a nice balance into the game for them. So in actual fact, they've done a pretty good job with those so far. I've not tested all the guns yet, but if the SG553R is anything to go by, I would guess that they've probably done a relatively decent job with kind of relooking and rebalancing some of the other weapons in the game as well. Now, moving on to the cons that I've found with the game so far, or the patch. Visibility. This is still an issue. It doesn't feel like they've done a whole lot to improve this, really. And in some cases, it's actually, in my opinion, made it worse. Like, there's been some games where I've been looking at people on the outside into the inside, and it's still super dark, impossible to see them. Again, the outdoors, still not great. They said that in the patch they're going to relook at it, and I know that they've tried to do something, because you can tell that there are things that are different in terms of the lighting effects that happen when you move inside and out. So they have tried to tinker around with it, but it's not really made a difference, and it's quite disappointing to see that really the game's still going to be left with not great visibility moving into the winter period. So yeah, this is going to need relooking at again in the next patch, because I'm not particularly pleased with what they've done with this so far. Onto the winter offensive stuff and the winter map. The winter map got a pretty, a good promo video and all that sort of stuff. Looks cool, but ultimately, let's be honest, it's not really new content, is it? They've got a existing map covered in snow and added another battle pass on top of the standard battle pass and all the other things that we've got to do to unlock. It just feels a bit lackluster, and I'm not sure this is going to be enough or I'm not sure it's enough to round off season 1, essentially, because all we've had is one new map all season. I don't really class Blackwell as a new map. It's just like, considering that most modes are quite unplayable in Blackwell, nah, it's not for me. So I only class the LA map as like the new one. But yeah, it's just lackluster, isn't it? Let's be honest. And there's the whole, you've got to go to the fires to, if you're playing that limited time mode, anyway, you got to go over to the fires to regen your health. And I don't know, it's just a little bit like, what are we doing? That's my opinion of it. But anyway, we won't dwell too much on that. I just feel like overall, it's lackluster. It hasn't used imagination, and the less said the better on winter offensive. It's just okay. Now, there have been some reports that there've been more introduction of random bugs going on. I'll be honest, I haven't really had loads that's been affecting me, other than when I've tried to load into the games. There's been a few bugs where it was blanking out the tiles for me, so I couldn't actually select to go in the game. But I restarted my game and that was okay. But then it kind of comes back and you have to keep restarting your game. Not the biggest thing in the world, but still annoying. But I have seen other reports, like with people saying that it's reset their settings back to all the standard settings again. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of the bugs seem to be in RedSec, and multiplayer probably still has a few that I've not uncovered or seen yet, but there's definitely bugs in there, and I just feel like every time they do an update, it's like it breaks another load of things. So they need to get on top of this, because I think certainly doing the settings every single time is not great. So yeah, and this will get old very quickly if this keeps happening, where they do a patch and then it breaks about 10 other things. So not amazing, but is what it is. And other than like the patch notes listing like a hell of a lot of bug fixes, the other con that I've got is there isn't much else to say other than that, there's been bug fixes. Like, it's not a patch that delivers any wow moments. And in my opinion, like, they still need to look at things like movement. I think they need to model it again more towards how they had it in the beta, but that wasn't looked at in this patch. There wasn't really any new content added, and that's my biggest con overall, is that it just feels like, good patch for bugs and stuff, but is that really going to keep people playing? I mean, overall, I think this is a good patch that clearly has quashed a load of bugs that are in the game. For me, the biggest thing that they've done is improving how the recoil and aim input interact, because that was so driving me crazy. So that is one thing that I'm like so happy to see, and it's probably going to keep me playing for longer, to be honest, because it just feels awesome now. But overall, is this really like going to keep people engaged? I'm not sure. Like, winter offensive is okay, but surely they would have been better off as we'll use some of their previous language, love letter to the fans, maybe bringing back like a surprise remastered classic map and making that a snow map. And I think that would have made like a huge difference overall to play during the winter period, like an old style map brought into this game for people over Christmas. I think that would have like brought those other 500,000 people that are not playing right now on Steam back for sure. So yeah, the content side is really light. Bug fixes, yes, really well done. Audio's pretty good now. They've tuned that. But overall, it's a bit of a meh patch. And it looks like we're really going to have to wait till season 2 for anything more significant. So my overall feelings is that it's a good patch. But from a content point of view, is it really going to keep people engaged for the holiday season? Has it gone far enough? Probably not. And that's where we're going to leave it, guys. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please drop a like, subscribe for more content like this, and I will see you in the next one.